All right, welcome back, family. Today, unfortunately, we are covering the fire that is happening in Hawaii, or happened in Hawaii, Maui to be exact. And more specifically, the region that took the most devastating hit is Lahaina. Now, at this point, the death toll is at 115, with approximately 1,100 people still missing. This is a tragedy of catastrophic proportions, and as the fire was raging on, our president, Joe Biden, was on vacation, and he didn't respond until the very next day. And when he came from the beachfront property that he was vacationing at, he decided not to address the reporters when they asked how did he feel and what was his comments in regards to the fire. He said, no comment. Not very presidential-like. Now, this tragedy in Hawaii is being labeled as the deadliest wildfire in American history, at least for 100 years. We haven't seen anything like this, especially in our lifetimes. So again, an immense tragedy with countless of lives lost. And it seems like a lot of these deaths could have been prevented. The alarm system, very sophisticated one that Hawaii has to warn its inhabitants of natural disaster, didn't go off for whatever reason. Also, the water system, when some of the residents was trying to put out the fire, was abruptly cut off. Now, the officials for both these things, the sirens and the water authorities, have come out and given their reason as to why they didn't act a little quicker to prevent the loss of life. But their reasoning to me just doesn't sit well. So because of all these things, again, sirens not going off, water being cut off, this has led to people coming up with conspiracy theories as to what could be happening here. Now, it's being said that these fires were ignited purposely by the oligarchs on the island to get rid of the less desirables in order to do a land grab and prop up more expensive homes around the area. I don't know if this could be true. It seems, again, far-fetched. But the fact that there's the circumstantial evidence that's pointing to why did this happen when it didn't have to, we'll examine the official reports. 2 weeks after these fires began, it was concluded that the fire was started by a down electric pole, and because extreme summer that the region was experiencing, the ground was extremely dry, which led to the brushes around the down pole to catch fire easily. Now, the Hawaiian Electric Company is being sued. As of now, there's about 9 lawsuits against them because they were told that these electrical poles and frayed wirings that they have are a hazard, and they didn't deal with it for whatever reason. But that is the official story. As I mentioned before, Biden was on vacation when this tragedy took place, didn't respond to it, or didn't come out of his beachfront house until the very next day. Then a few days later, he went to visit and quickly returned to vacation. That doesn't bother me one bit. What is more disturbing to me is that before going to visit the ruins in Hawaii, Biden requested from Congress an additional $40 billion of support for Ukraine and have not yet made any commitment monetarily to how he will help the efforts in Hawaii. So far, FEMA has pledged $5.6 million, and the only official reports that we have in regards to relief efforts for the victims is Biden pledging to give those directly affected by this $700. Let me repeat that, $700 for every individual affected, while pledging $40 billion to Ukraine. If that doesn't get you going, I don't know what will. Now, off the subject a little bit and on to Ukraine. And I gotta tell you, as Americans, it is in our best interest that Ukraine wins this war. But as a Russian, it spells the end of who and what you are. You cannot afford to lose this war. If you do, your regime will be ousted, and Russia as we know it will no longer exist. Now, if you're President Putin, and if your back is against the wall, you are willing to do whatever it takes to win, including using tactical nuclear weapons. So I say, to avoid a further catastrophic event, we have no business over there, and we should allow whatever happens in that region of the world to play out however it will. We should butt out of it. But that's just my little 2 cents. Now, Biden wasn't graciously received upon his arrival in Hawaii, Maui, there were bands of young folks screaming profanities as his motorcade passed by. I don't believe we should be doing this kind of disrespect towards our president, but I guess these people were fed up and didn't appreciate how slow he was to react. And not only that, he went and gave a speech, which to me, I don't understand how he doesn't have handlers, how he doesn't prepare a speech. He went off the cuff and spoke about something of his own experience which rubbed people the wrong way.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. And lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond. Make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
And immediately after this little dialogue, pretending to relate to these people because he had similar experiences, reporters were quick to fact-check his story and found that there were some untruths or inconsistencies with what the facts were.
The official account from about 20 years ago is of a small fire that was contained to a kitchen and put out in about 20 minutes. But the president's version of this story last night included the term losing a home.
Crooked Joe Biden, the most incompetent president in the history of our country, with a laugh and a smile said he had no comment on the death and the tragedy. To say no comment is oftentimes fine, but to be smiling when you say it, especially against such a tragedy as this, is absolutely horrible and unacceptable. It is a disgraceful thing that Joe Biden refuses to help or comment on the tragedy in Maui, just as he refused to help or comment on the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, for a very, very long time.
Hey, good morning to you. We've been here since day one and immediately began asking the question, why did the sirens not go off? Officials told us they could have saved lives and that all of this wind could have knocked them offline, but we now know the sirens were working, and it was one person's job to decide whether to activate them. He told me he knew that the fire was growing and still did not pull the alarm.
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. And the reason why...
So many people said they could have been saved if they had time to escape. Had a siren gone off, they would have known that there was a crisis emerging. And as we know, so many bodies were found in the ground as the flames caught their heels.
Give me the answer.
The sirens, as I mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis. And that's the reason why many of them are found, almost all of them are found, on the coastline. The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded. Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone malka. And if that was the case, then they would have gone into the fire. By the way, I should also note that there are no sirens malka, or on the mountainside, where the fire was spreading down. So even if we sounded the siren, it would not have saved those people on the mountainside.
I sort of understand that he knew that the fires was in the hills and he didn't want to direct people towards the hills, which is why he didn't sound the siren. But on the website for the hazardous system that they have in place, it does list wildfire as a reason why these sirens would be sounded. So that explanation kind of goes out the window. Now there's plenty of videos claiming that all the homes except for the elites were burned down. And even some of the locals are claiming this. We did a little research and found that most of these elites, such as Oprah, Obama, who these people, these conspiracy theorists are claiming to have done this, Lahaina, the area most devastated by these fires, these celebrity oligarchs' homes were nowhere near the area.
Here's a map of where the Maui wildfires broke out, which shows the most damage in the central and western parts of the island. So, where do those celebrities have homes? Oprah owns various properties in Maui, including a home in Kula, located here, several miles from the nearest fire. Jeff Bezos' home is even further away, over here. And if you're looking for Obama's property, you'll have to go to a different island, Oahu.
Now, as it relates to this conspiracy theory where the elites, used a direct energy weapon to ignite these fires, there's several images or videos making the rounds on the internet, and a lot of people are buying these stories without fact checking. These images here happens to be 3 specific images that are supposed direct energy weapon being used in Hawaii when this fire started. But we did a little fact check and found those to be false as well.
Using a reverse image search, Verify traced this picture back to a January 2018 Facebook post from the Canton Repository, a local Ohio news outlet claiming to show footage of a controlled burn at a refinery in Ohio. We traced this image back to posts from SpaceX in May of 2018. According to SpaceX, the images show a time-lapse photo of a SpaceX rocket launch in California. And finally, Verify traced this image back to a viral TikTok video from May 25th, 2023. According to the original description, the video was taken in Chile. A Chilean news outlet shared the footage, saying it shows a transformer explosion.
Now here is one that hasn't yet been debunked. But in this day and age, yes, this looks to be credible, but you can't really believe what your eyes are seeing, especially as it relates to video. This could have easily been done by CGI, and of course I'll show you one exactly like this. Like this one, like I said, hasn't really quite been debunked. But check this out. A laser weapon targeting a specific area, an explosion thereby ensues. But this is fake. Let's take a look at the real image at the bottom, and the top one is the one we just saw. Check this out. There was an actual explosion, but the laser beam was edited in there. You can't trust what you see, especially on the internet. Now, to me, the most compelling piece from these conspiracy theorists is the fact that when they were using these direct energy weapons, they avoided burning blue objects for whatever reason. And as you see some of these pictures, there are somewhat suspicious items that are blue that are clearly not burned. Look at the sign here. There's no sign of burn around it at all, where everything else is all charred up and burnt crisp. Why didn't that sign burn? Also, we look here at this blue car, everything around it, all those other cars burnt to a crisp down to the ground. The windows of these other cars were shattered. This one was not. Paint still on it. There's some charred ashes on the car on the front side, but for the most part, it didn't suffer the same amount of damage as these other cars. Its window is still intact. Another funny part of this is that a lot of these cars, windows have melted. Glass of a vehicle usually don't melt until about 2100 degrees. Fires usually burn around 500 or 600 degrees. What happened to these blue shirts? They're amongst everything that have burned down, but it don't look to have been touched or affected by the fires whatsoever. I don't know.
Laser weapons can be programmed for different wavelengths. There was something blue they didn't want to burn.
Blue car did not burn in flames. Same as the blue umbrella.
Like I said, I don't specifically believe that this was a direct energy attack by any means. But again, these are things that will make you raise an eyebrow at the very least. Now look, conspiracy theories are very fun to examine, but like I always say, you should approach all of them with a healthy dose of skepticism, because usually these wild claims are unsubstantiated. In this case, I think we could clearly or safely say these conspiracy theories about the elites purposely starting this fire to rid themselves of the lower class in order to build more substantial residential or whatever it is, resorts that they wanted to build in the place of these burned down houses. I think that's a tall one. I think we've proven here today it holds no base. These are just wild allegations that just don't stand the test of scrutiny, in my opinion. Now, I thought this was interesting. Like I said, the whole idea of these blue objects not burning is somewhat questionable, but it doesn't lead me to believe that these allegations are somewhat true in any way. I think this was, as the officials claim, a number of circumstances that led to how fast the fire spread. There was a tropical storm, there was high winds, these electric poles the Hawaiian Electric Company was warned that these were in fact a fire hazard and they didn't tend to it. And I believe that's what actually happened. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Is there enough here to conclude that there must be something going on? This also lends to the fact that we are so untrusting of our government. We are so suspicious of everything that we hear from the news. We are at a point in America where 60% of the population no longer believes the mainstream media is telling them the truth. That's an all-time high. So when these events take place and there's a scintilla of questionable events, there's going to be conspiracy theories all around it. But again, leave your thoughts in the comment. Let me know. Do you believe this was what the official explanation claims it was? Or does the conspiracy thing still drives you and there was some malice and an intentional setting of these fires? Thank you for checking me out one more time. Catch you on the next one.